Hello aspirants, welcome to Pragyān Veda IAS. Within the mains Manthanam series that we have, we are going to cover the third issue on Election Commission of India. Recently many editorials appeared in newspapers, and because the general elections 2024 are also around the corner, and even UPSC Prelims has been postponed because of the same, this topic becomes important for mains or even from Prelims point of view. So we're going to discuss the various functioning and the constitutional provisions that are there for the smooth functioning of ECI to conduct the free and fair election within the Indian scenario, and what are some issues that plague the functioning, what are certain reforms that are to be undertaken to have a smooth functioning of ECI, right? So quickly let us discuss as we know, when we want to discuss any issue, we will discuss it in an intro, body and conclusion format. That's a very suitable way of addressing any kind of issue. And we can start ahead like this, introducing what is ECI, what are its mandate, what are some provisions in constitution, what are its composition, like that. So ECI is basically an autonomous body under the Constitution of India, entailed within the Article 324, right, under Part 15th of Constitution of India, very clearly, elaboratedly given. So, and it is responsible for administering union and state government elections, right? And along with this, it can also it can also conduct the elections for president, for vice president, under single transferable vote and secret ballot system, right? And also it is composed of 3 members, one chief election commissioner and 2 other election commissioners, right? And so what are the basic functions that ECI undertakes to conduct free and fair elections and so forth, strengthening the democratic system, because democracy means by the people, for the people, of the people, and getting the representative of the people to come and run the system. So conducting free and fair election becomes a very crucial function of ECI, and it organizes numerous elections. The union and state government elections are conducted by the ECI, whereas there is state election commission also, which conducts the urban local bodies election and Panchayati Raj institutions election. Urban local bodies in the sense the municipal corporations, municipalities, etc., and the Panchayati Raj institutions, we have panchayats, village panchayats, right? Important. Then the second function that ECI undertakes is introducing voter ID cards. During 1993 time, when T.N. Seshan was there as a chief election commissioner, he introduced these voting ID cards because there were many irregularities in false names, lot of manipulations occurring in the smooth functioning of elections, and thus first cut proof of identity was envisaged to conduct and maintain the integrity of electoral process, right? Then what is the next function of ECI? Introducing technology based adaptability within the ambit of conducting of elections. So we have been there is an introduction of EVM machines, right, electronic voting machines. So the basic purpose of it was to make it more transparent, to avoid all kinds of electoral frauds that undertook in various electoral exercises in various parts of the country, and to make it more efficient, because when during the elections, when the voters put their vote in the name of, say, a paper ballot, right, there are all chances of manipulating, cross mixing the boxes, and the chances of playing with the after poll processes would be higher, and therefore converting that to an electronic format would significantly reduce any kind of manipulations that may come. So that was the whole thought process in bringing in the EVMs. And there is also VVPAT machine which is there. It is called as voters verifiable paper for audit and trial, right? Which means as soon as a voter votes and a VVPAT machine attached to the EVM will print a paper that the particular voter has voted for a particular party. So it is like a receipt that we get, with which transparency is greatly enhanced, and this was introduced in 2014 Lok Sabha only recently, right? So bringing in this kind of technologies like EVMs, VVPATs, these are some functions of ECI, and implementing the model code of conduct. So these are certain set of guidelines to conduct the electoral processes, right? And this is related to campaigning, making various advertisements, and usage of government resources in this in this conducting of elections. So the model code of conduct very clearly entails that, and all this and implementing the same is the function of ECI. And I said using of innovation technology. Even C-Vigil is a particular app which is there for civils or the civil citizens. If there are any violations occurred and any citizen notices them, they can report that issue to the election commission via this app. So this gives a very clear transparency and empowers every citizen in the smooth governance of election process. And there are various other functions also. One of them is voter education, that voter awareness and participation of eligible people who are 18 plus, right? To educate them, make them aware, because at times because of the illiteracy in the voting process, and many people enter in the age group, so there's a lack of awareness, and rather than opting for one particular party, they may end up voting another party because of lack of awareness, or the whole system has to be the process has to be made aware to all the citizens, right? So that is the whole point. So various educational programs are undertaken by ECI. Now this quick stat can be sprinkled in the answer so that it can add a lot of value. Basically 1951 was the first general election that happened in India, and henceforth every 5 years there have been elections happening. In the first time when the first general elections happened, this thing was around 45%, right? The voter turnout. So eventually the graph has been increasing and decreasing, but over the period of time, in the last Lok Sabha election in 2019, we saw a turnout rate of voters by 67%, and in 2014 it was 66%. And in the upcoming 2024 we are expecting a higher turnout of the eligible voters in the exercise of election process, right? So this is a very good stat. You can sprinkle that in the answer. And what do we infer from this is, the more number of citizens turn out for voting, that strengthens the whole democratic setup of any country, right? So this is the indication of how democratic a country is and how participative are its citizens in its in strengthening process, right? Then we have what are some basic issues to be discussed that plague or that they create hindrance in functioning of ECI. That there are certain constitutional limitations. There are basic provisions that are entailed within the constitution regarding the basic mandate and functioning, but various other details regarding qualification and the term of the election commissioners and their reappointments, and all these related issues are not clearly given. Thus lot of room is there for manipulation by the legislature, the government. So because recently, why this even the issue was in the news, because recently some two retired bureaucrats were reappointed in the um, as election commissioners, which significantly raised eyebrows regarding uh, the executive bias that has to be catered to, because independence of constitutional bodies like ECI is very much needed for the smooth functioning and strengthening of democratic setup. So these are some issues that are associated with ECI. And the selection committee dominated by government, right? Mostly who elects these commissioners is the PM, the opposition leader of Lok Sabha, and the union cabinet minister. Now this will lead to lot of undermining of the independence of ECI. So this is a significant significant issue that plagues ECI in terms of selection, and therefore there are possibilities of forming nexus of bureaucrats or potential candidates with government, and all those hidden issues exist. Then lack of financial independence. As far as the funding of ECI and elections is concerned, they are voted in parliament, and they are not drawn from the consolidated fund of India, right? And thus they are completely dependent on central government, and therefore favoritism or dependency creates a lot of weakness in its existence only. So this is one such issue that exists. Then electoral malpractices. Various India has seen various malpractices happening in the election processes. There are duplicate entries, there are inaccuracies. We talked about wrong names, or the ID cards having people who are already died, who have died, and still are false votes happening on their name. Booth capturing, vandalizing, tampering of the EVM machines. And I said about the voter impersonation. Someone else votes on somebody else's name. So manipulation of voters list, and so all these things are there significant event, and we have addressed to a great extent these issues, but a lot of further work has to be done in this direction, because within the democracy and election process we have one person, one vote, and one value. And if that is not that principle is not upheld, and within the universal adult franchisee principle, if these basic principles are not upheld by a body like ECI, then the whole purpose is not served, and therefore all these malpractices, unscrupulous means of election are all to be curtailed, right? Then what is the other issue that plagues ECI is political bias and allegations that are there. Various allegations are made against ECI for implementation of MCC, and a lot of political bias and favoritism that exists. Selectively there has been a trend in ECI selectively applying its model code of conduct to certain parties, and being favored by a particular party, like that. So all these are some issues that are hidden and implicit, and it also lacks the authority to deregister some political parties. See, ECI is not at all empowered to enforce any kind of inner party democracy. So when it comes to democracy, it is not to be, or it is not to be just mandated in its letter, but also in its spirit. And therefore regulating of party finances and lot of black money that flows within the electoral process, and the real these are the real issues. And the ECI is like sometimes appears to be like a toothless tiger, right? In administering the same. And also accessibility and inclusivity. So there is a lot of inadequate infrastructure for voters, right? At times for people with disabilities, or there's a lot of language barriers that can occur, and logistical challenges. These are some other issues that are there. Okay. Now what are some steps that has to be taken to strengthen the working of ECI? That the formation of independent selection committee. Currently we have the PM, the opposition leader of Lok Sabha, right? And one more minister of the cabinet. There are suggestions of having the CJI in the selection committee, so that there is a reduction in the biases that may occur, okay, and favoritism that may occur. This is one such suggestion in that direction. Then we have if there are any statutory provisions for election commissioners, that will greatly empower them to prevent any kind of the political pressure that can come, right? Because due to lack of any such statutory safeguard, there are fears, there are biases that prevail, correct? And also transparent funding mechanisms. So currently, as we discussed also, that the funding is greatly dependent on the central government, and therefore transparency, especially in funding mechanisms, is also not greatly there. So all these things have to be addressed. And enhancing electoral integrity. So there are efforts in this direction, having EVMs or even VVPATs. So even VVPATs, they have to be given to more and more constituencies. Currently only some specified locations or places only these processes have been experimented, but it has to its horizon has to increase. And technological integration, of course, embracing new technologies and avoiding all the mishandling that can occur. And ECI also, because even cyber security and other angles are also becoming very dominant. The moment we get into digitization, then security, cyber security and all other issues also come with it. So UCI also, of course, mandates or very clearly mentions that VVPATs and other like EVMs, they are not connected to any network, and they are they're very trustable sources of having the election process. But yet there are also higher and higher integration that has to occur to avoid any kind of further issues being created in that respect, right? And inclusive participation. So inclusion is a very crucial point, that all other people with disabilities, or even some people like military personnels won't get access, and there are many other provisions already existing, and they have to be enhanced more also. Then international collaboration. Just like ECI in India, there are various other bodies everywhere else in the world where elections happen. So knowledge transfer, sharing the best practices, capacity building, joint conferences, and all this can greatly add values of the whole electoral process itself, and electoral governance can be enhanced in that sense, right? So basically in India we have the first past the post system, right? And there are also single transferable voting systems like that. So various Nordic and other developed economies, developed countries, they follow certain ways of election processes. They can we can take the best of them and incorporate in our electoral processes. Then towards the conclusion, what we can have, we can give a very futuristic yet a very summarizing kind of an answer, that ECI needs to adapt to technological advancement, so that it can strengthen the regulatory frameworks, and thus can promote the inclusive participation. And the whole purpose is to uphold the democratic principles and to preserve the trust of common people and confidence, right? And by empowering ECI, we can have its capacity to regulate and oversee elections effectively. Their effectiveness and efficiency is enhanced greatly. Like this, we can give a very futuristic answer and optimistic answer. Then we can have okay, so this is all the answer that we discussed. Then what are some potential questions that can come is critically analyze the role and functioning of Election Commission of India, suggest reforms to strengthen and empower the ECI. So like this question can come, very straightforward questions can come like that. Okay, we will take some previous year questions also. There was a question in 2022 on model code of conduct, right? And in 2018 we had one more question on EVMs, right? So when it comes to MCC, we can just give an intro on set of guidelines issued by ECI. Just define what is MCC. To regulate political parties and candidates prior to election. The whole point is prior to election, to control the functioning of the electoral process. But the thing is, it doesn't have any statutory backing, so such and such key features can be indicated. And what are some areas of regulation where MCC functions for parties, candidates? um, you know it mainly regulates these people. And public exchequer, right? Election manifesto, so that they don't harm or they don't go against any um, you know democratic principle or against the Constitution of India, just to appease certain set of um, population in the name of vote bank, and then vote for note and other malpractices. So upholding the integrity of the process, and thus regulating the functioning of political parties and candidates. And what are issuing guidelines for processions, polling method, and even meetings. All this can be greatly regulated via MCC. And what are some criticism? That it is ineffective, again like a toothless tiger, because it doesn't have any legal backing, and many people don't even know what is MCC, and lot of it suffers with lack of compliance, that people do not comply with MCC. And we can give a way forward that MCC is like a cornerstone of democratic elections, to give more teeth to the regulation. So like that we can just conclude. Okay, just a small discussion on MCC. And one more question, like on EVM, right? There are some controversy on EVM also, right? So what are some challenges? So we can just define what is EVM, just give a background on intro, and just take one more topic on what are different challenges, list them some 7-8 points. Then how to design what are some India to ensure trustworthiness. Then give some way forward of what are some various means in which we can enhance the functioning of democracy, especially in connection with EVM, like that. And many of the points that we discussed can be utilized. And some keywords, because when it comes to election and democracy, we have to use certain key language of that topic, that we have electoral exercise, like executive bias, independence of constitutional bodies like ECI, like that, right? And we have some acts also, you can quote 1950, which gives the background of elections and all the information regarding that. And provisions for conducting and the processes of conducting election is all entailed within the RPA, Representative of People's Act 1951, right? There is also section 126, I think, if I remember rightly, which specifically mentions various processes. And we should always sprinkle these keywords related to elections, right? MCC, inner party democracy, see, like this, some keywords. Then and you underline those keywords, then your answer stands out. Okay, so this is for the topic on election commission. It's election and selection, and you can find the PDF of this in the Telegram group. Thank you.